Good morning everyone, today we're going to be talking about gear progression for your armors because I know armors are a little bit more complicated than the weapons since there are more choices. Now the very first thing I want to talk about is this video will be segmented into two separate parts. The first part of the video is what type of armor should you upgrade to, and then the second part of the armor is going to be talking about the augments themselves. So depending on how far you've progressed in the game, you can simply just jump to those timestamps and you'll be able to get all the information that you actually want. Alright, so the very first thing I want to clarify is all of these armors over here are absolutely useless. Even the Aina armors, absolutely trash. You do not need any of these armors simply because when you progress through the main storyline, once you hit level 65, you will get these Dechem armors that are fully augmented, fully enhanced, and everything is done for you. These Dechem armors are literally going to be your best friend until you can upgrade to your endgame armors. Now at the time of this recording, the seasonal shop is still available, which means you can buy a specific armor called the Ecstasis armor. It's very important that you purchase this from the seasonal shop. The reason for this is because it's limit broken to max level 90, which is the maximum enhancement level at the time of this recording. And the reason why having a fully limit broken armor is so important is because to limit break your armor, it costs a lot of resources and you have to limit break it every 10 levels. So in order to get your armor from nothing to fully limit broken, normally you have to limit break it 4 times, but this time you don't because they're fully limit broken. That's why this is so valuable. Now another reason why these Ecstasis armors are so important is because just like the weapons, the Ecstasis armors can also evolve. So at the very beginning, you're going to be evolving your Ecstasis armors into the Dostasis armors, then it can be upgraded into a Tristasis, and then finally it can evolve into our current best in slot, which is the Acostasis. Now something you may have realized is, hey, armors are a little bit more complicated than the weapons as you have 3 separate choices. So you can see when you upgrade to the Dostasis armor, there's just the regular Dostasis armor. However, there's a Dostasis armor Vita and then a Dostasis armor Vio. Now it really doesn't matter which you pick at the very beginning because you can change every single time you evolve. So let's say that you started with the Dostasis armor because you're like, hey, balanced build sounds good, you know, I want to play it safe. And then let's say when you're evolving it to the Tristasis armor, you're like, wow, you know, I don't need this balanced armor, I need more health because I keep dying. Then you can evolve your Dostasis armor into a Tristasis armor Vita because we can click on the Tristasis armor Vita and you can see there are 4 choices over here. You can see this one is just simply changing it from a Dostasis armor plus all the materials and you evolve into a Tristasis armor Vita. However, as you can see, there are a ton of other options down here as well. You can evolve a Dostasis armor Vita into a Tristasis armor Vita, or you can even evolve a Dostasis armor Vio into a Dostasis armor Vita. So Vio is the one that gives you all the PP but no HP, and you can evolve it into the HP armor if you choose to do so. And you can do this on every single evolution of your armor. So it's not that bad, it's not the end of the world. You don't need to make sure that your build is perfect before evolving any of the armors. And what's even better is if you already know for a fact that, hey, I'm going with my endgame build and I only care about HP, or I'm 100% sure that I want the balanced build, you can immediately upgrade your Ecstasis armor directly into a Acostasis armor, which is our current endgame armors. So you can click on the Acostasis armor and at the very bottom, you can see you can exchange an Ecstasis armor plus all these materials to make your Acostasis armor immediately. And you can do that with every single piece of armor over here, which is very, very convenient. Alright, now to answer the age-old question of which armor should you pick. It really doesn't matter. It's all personal preference. There is no best armor to pick over here, alright? Because if we look at the important stat, which is of course the weapon up or our potency, all 3 armors give you the exact same amount of all potency. So it doesn't matter which armor you pick, it's all up to personal preference, whether you want more HP, whether you want more PP, whether you want a balanced build, they are all good. It depends on how you play the game and what you need to perfect your playstyle, okay? Alright, now that you've decided which endgame armor to aim for, and let's say that you've already made all 3 pieces, what is the next step? The next step is to enhance it all the way to plus 90 preferably. Now the minimum you need to enhance it is to plus 81. The reason why you want to enhance it to plus 81 at the very least is because that is when you unlock the 7th augment slot. So at the very beginning, when your armor is only enhancement 60 or below, you're only going to have 5 augment slots. Once you enhance it to plus 61, you will unlock the 6th augment slot, and then you'll need to enhance it all the way to 81 in order to get the 7th augment slot. So these augment slots are incredibly important because each augment slot can help you gain a ton of potency. As you can see here, let's say that, we'll use an extreme example over here. This single augment slot alone gives me 6.5% extra potency. So just by having that extra augment slot, you'll be able to increase your stats dramatically, whether it be HP, PP, or just overall damage. But now I know a lot of people are going to be asking me, Kara, what augment should I put on my armor? Alright, so when it comes down to augments, it's actually very simple, as I have a nice little cheat sheet over here. All you need to search up are all the different LC augments that you have. As you can see here, there's actually tiers of rarity for LC augments. So for example, the Grand Gladiosol LC is a 5-star rarity augment, same as the Lux Hal Finale LC, the Glangigas Maste LC, the Grand Red Keeper 2 LC, and the Giga Trial LC. So these 5 are going to be your top priority. You definitely want to put all 5 of these augments onto your armor because they are all 5-star rarity, and some of them even onto your weapon. The reason why I say some of them is because on your weapon you actually have 3 EX augments already. So out of your 7 slots, 3 slots have been occupied. So you only have 4 slots to put the rest of these LC augments onto your weapon. However, as we know, on our armor, we actually have 7 slots. So what should you put for the last 2 slots? It's really up to you. As you can see, there are a bunch of 4-star rarity LC augments, but it's very important to take a look at the little number at the side. As you can see, these 4 augments over here, there's A9, A21, A15, A16, and A28. So a lot of people are like, what do these letters and numbers even mean? These letters and numbers symbolize what category or what augment type it is. So for example, if I put a Grand Gladiosol LC, which is an A9 capsule, I cannot put a Gladiosol LC, as this is also an A9 capsule. So when I try to put a Gladiosol LC into a piece of gear that already has a Grand Gladiosol LC, it will try to replace it, alright? So it's very important to actually look at the categories over here so that you're not actually overriding any of them, because that would be a huge waste of resources. So if you already put all 5 of these LC augments onto your armor, then you need to make sure that when you're looking at the 4-star rarity armors that you do not overlap. So for example, A9, so we cannot use the Gladiosol LC. A21, we cannot use the Hal Finale LC. And then we have the A15, A16, and A28. So when we look through over here, so it's like, oh, we can't use Grand Red Keeper 1 LC because that's under A16. So you can basically just sort through which 4-star rarities you cannot use, and then just pick the ones that you might want to use instead, such as the High L Dominant LC, we can use this instead, or there are other choices down here, such as the High Stia Dominant LCs, which is an A12, because when we scroll up here, you can see that there is no A12 in these categories over here. So the A12 augment slot is open. So now that we've seen all the different LC augments we can actually put into our armors, you can see that, hey, this only adds up to 6. We're still missing an augment slot. What should you use as a free-to-play player? Well, there is an augment called the Might, Precision, or Technique DP, or even the Dual Potency DP augments that you can use. So the dual potency ones are all under the same category of A11, versus the single potency is under the category A3, A4, and A5. So you can use any of these depending on which you want, depending on what type of potency, what type of weapon you are using. Now for my friends who are a little bit confused on like, what potency do I need for my weapon? Well, what you need to look at is the little symbol of your weapon. So when you hover over your weapon, you don't need to think about, oh, is katana a melee weapon or a range weapon or whatever. You simply look at the background picture of your weapon. As you can see, this has an orange background, which means that it will need melee potency. Now, if we look at a rifle, for example, this has a blue background, which means it's a range weapon. And then when we look at a rod over here, this has a yellow background, which means it requires technique potency. So again, when we look at the different potencies, you can see they are color coded. Orange is melee, blue is range, and yellow is technique. All right, so just see which is your main weapon, what weapon do you actually use, and just look at the top left corner while you're previewing the weapon and see what color it is. Alright, now that you've fully upgraded your weapon as well as your armors and you've filled everything up with LC augments, congratulations, you have hit the soft cap of NGS. Now you want to slowly start working towards replacing all those LC capsules with actual capsules. So for example, we saw that there was the Grand Gladiosol LC. Now you want to replace that with an actual Grand Gladiosol, and that works with every single augment. Now the difference between a Grand Gladiosol LC as well as a regular Grand Gladiosol is just its damage, alright? As you can see, the LC variant gives you the same amount of HP, 25 HP, 7 PP, and 4.25% potency, versus the full-on Grand Gladiosol gives you 25 HP, 7 PP, and 4.75% potency. So it gives you 0.5% more potency. Again, it might not seem much on paper, but if you put it on every single piece of gear, and remember you have 7 augment slots per gear, it does add up to become quite a big deal. Now, is it absolutely necessary to upgrade your LC augments into the full-on augments? No. That's why I said that it's a soft cap. Basically, getting everything to your LC augment and evolving all of your armors and weapons to the Akko series, as well as fully enhancing them and just filling them out with LC augments, is already good enough to do 99% of all the content available in the game very, very comfortably. The rest is really up to you, just learning how to play your class properly, learning how to use all the different weapons, and you are good to go already. Now, the only thing is there is a specific piece of content called Masquerade, where there are 100 floors. If you do want to clear floor 100, I do recommend getting a little bit more gear, as that fight is very, very punishing, especially if you don't have any gear to compensate for any mistakes you may make while you are fighting that boss. Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again. But yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in today's video. Hopefully you guys found it helpful. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye.